We like to think our digital world is this perfect, immortal library, right? A place where knowledge is safe forever. But what if I told you that our most precious historical artifacts, these incredible ancient manuscripts, are being locked away? Not by time, but by the very technology we're using to save them. Today, we're going to play detective and follow a story that uncovers a massive, and I mean massive, blind spot in how we protect our own history. All right, let's really get into this. Picture it. Some priceless ancient text gets scanned, digitized perfectly, and tucked away on a super secure server. It's safe, you'd think. But here's the kicker. What if you can't find it? What if the tools you'd need to search for, say, a really specific symbol, or a unique bit of handwriting, or a barely there watermark? What if those tools just don't exist? The file itself isn't lost, no, but its secrets, they're totally locked away. And that's the mystery we're cracking open today. Yeah, we all know the usual villains when it comes to old books, right? Physical decay. You've got your tearing, your fading ink, water damage, the classic stuff. But now, in the digital age, there's this new, sneakier threat: digital decay. And look, it's not just about a file getting corrupted or something. No, the most dangerous kind of digital decay, and this is what we're going to see, is when a file is saved perfectly, but it's just unsearchable. A digital ghost. So the hero that's supposed to save the day here is a technology called image retrieval. The easiest way to think about it, it's basically a reverse image search, but for historians. You could feed it a picture of one weird, unique symbol, and bam, it's supposed to find every single other time that symbol appears across thousands, even millions of documents. It's the key that turns a digital archive from just a dusty old storage locker into a powerful engine for discovery. Okay, so how did we even find out about this problem? Well, our story really kicks off with a team of researchers. Back in 2024, they didn't actually set out to solve a big mystery. They just wanted to do something pretty straightforward: map out the current tech being used to search and preserve these ancient manuscripts. They had a very specific mission. They were looking for research that sat right at the intersection of three key things. First, you've got image retrieval. That's the search tool we just talked about. Second, ancient manuscripts. That's the stuff they wanted to search. And third, and this is crucial, optimization. Now, optimization is basically what makes the search tool smart. It's the secret sauce that fine-tunes everything so it doesn't just find similar images, it finds the right ones. So that specific combination, that was their holy grail. And these guys were not messing around. They were incredibly thorough. They had this strict three-step plan. First up, identification. They searched 4 huge academic databases for anything relevant. Then came screening. They tossed out all the duplicates and anything that was obviously off topic. And finally, eligibility. This is where they actually read the full text of every single paper that was left just to find the perfect matches. This was a super meticulous investigation. And this is where our story really gets interesting. We get to follow the paper trail. And just like in any good detective novel, they started out with a ton of leads, but with each step they took, that list of potential suspects started to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, so at first, things looked really promising. They did a broad search for just image retrieval, and boom, they got 811 articles. That's a great start, right? You'd think for sure the answer had to be buried in there somewhere. But then they did their first round of screening. They just read the titles and the short summaries to see if they were actually relevant. And that number? It took an absolute nosedive, all the way down to just 15 articles. 15! In a single step, this giant ocean of research just shrank to a tiny little pond. And then came the final, most detailed filter. They read the full text of those 15 articles, word for word. And after all that, they found only 7 were even close to what they were looking for. Just 7. Think about that. From over 800 down to 7. But the real shocker, the biggest discovery of all, came when they looked for that perfect combination we talked about. Okay, this is it. This is the climax of the whole story. This is the exact moment their simple review turned into a full-blown investigation of a completely missing field of research. They decided to combine all their keywords to find the exact specific papers they needed. And you can see the whole story laid out right here in this table. Look at this. Image retrieval, all by itself, 811 results, no problem. But what happens when they added optimization to the search? 0. Nothing. Okay, what about image retrieval plus ancient manuscript? 0 again. So you can probably guess what happened when they searched for all 3 together. The exact thing they came looking for. They found a big, fat zero. Nothing. Nada. Not one single research paper in 4 of the biggest academic databases on the planet was about their topic. The paper trail didn't just go cold. It turned out there was never a trail there to begin with. And look, this wasn't just them missing something. This was a clear, undeniable discovery, a whole critical area of research. The one that's supposed to combine our best technology with our most precious history was basically a ghost town. It was completely empty. So what about those 7 papers that were kind of close, the ones that were at least in the right neighborhood? Well, digging into those actually gives us the final clues we need to understand just how big and how important this gap really is. And this chart just shows the disconnect perfectly. Out of those 7 close enough papers they found, look at what they were actually about. Pretty much all of them involved optimization. Most of them talked about image retrieval. But how many actually studied ancient manuscripts? 1. Just 1. The problem wasn't the tech itself. It was that nobody was pointing the tech at the right target. So this really nails it down. All the puzzle pieces are there. Researchers are working hard on optimization. They're developing new image retrieval techniques. But they just aren't connecting those powerful tools to our shared history. That one lonely paper proves, yeah, it's possible to do it, but it also proves that almost nobody is. And what's really wild is that the missed opportunity is even bigger than you think. The researchers point out there are whole toolkits of powerful methods out there, things like genetic algorithms or ant colony optimization, that would be perfect for this kind of work. They're just sitting on the shelf collecting dust. The tools are right there, just waiting for someone to pick them up. Which brings us to the most important question of all, the final chapter of this story. So what? Why does any of this matter? I mean, who cares about a tiny gap in some super specific academic field, right? Well, here's why it matters. This is the single biggest takeaway from all of this. We are spending so much effort creating these incredible digital libraries of our history, but we're completely failing to build the smart, searchable catalogs that we need to actually navigate them. It's like we're using the best scanners in the world to save our past, but we're not using our best computer science to actually understand it. You know, in the paper, the researchers put it in that careful academic way. They said the research is still limited. But now that we've followed their whole investigation, we know what that really means. It's not just limited, it's practically non-existent. And that leaves us with a pretty wild final thought. What this research is really telling us is that the key to the next huge historical breakthrough, the next Dead Sea Scrolls, or maybe rediscovering a lost language, it might not be found in some dusty ruin. It might be hidden in a line of code. The next great discovery might not be made by an archaeologist with a brush, but by a programmer with a brilliant algorithm. And that leaves just one question. Who's going to be the one to write it?